Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you to the organisers for the invitation. The very first invitation said, can you give a technical talk on the future of livestock farming? You know, like I've seen you give before. Yeah, fine, not a problem. Then a bit later came an email that said, it's beef and sheep. Slightly more challenging. So I'll do my best. There will be examples from other species of the sorts of things that are going, that hopefully the more extensive livestock species can learn from. First, the one slide about the organisation that I work for, who we are, what we do. So we're one of 15 knowledge transfer networks that are funded by the Technology Strategy Board. Technology Strategy Board is itself funded by Business Innovation and Skills. It comes after the research councils in terms of funding of research into development and application. And the Technology Strategy Board's only got really one objective, which is business growth through innovation. There was a question this morning about the sort of things that keep you awake at night. The sort of things that would keep my bosses in the Technology Strategy Board awake at night would be Rolls-Royce engines leaving the country. Those sorts of things would worry them a lot more than anything that happens in farming. We're facilitators. We fit in this space between the research industry and people with money. Whether the people with money are government sponsors or venture capitalists or corporate investors or even businesses themselves just sinking back some profit into R&D. So we try to oil the wheels to speed up the conversion of research into wealth. So if you think about spending money to get knowledge, that's research. Right, the innovation bit's the reverse bit, and in the UK we're not so good at the reverse bit, taking knowledge and converting it back into wealth so that we can continue to live the lifestyle that we do. As I said, we're one of 15 knowledge transfer networks. We're not the only one that has an interest in agriculture, but a lot of our work is in agriculture. Some of it's in industrial biotechnology as well. There's an entirely different one that looks after human health care, but we also look after animal health as well. So that's the one slide. A bit about setting the scene. What do we mean by precision livestock farming and how far away are we from it in the different species? Going to look a bit at the breadth of past innovations because they teach us a lot about the sorts of areas we might have future innovations. By no means everything about the sorts of areas we might have future innovations. Look at some impacts and how that's real, very real in some of the other species and less so in beef, cattle and sheep. And then dwell on the bits that interest me, some things happening right now. The thing that fascinates me is the book of life, you know, from sequence of DNA through to consequence of that DNA. And that's the bit that keeps me amused. So I'm going to look at breed improvement, other innovations from genomics, from reading DNA sequence. Bit about advances in reproductive technologies that are going to move really quickly over the next 15 or 20 years. GM, because it's going to happen. Might not happen here first, but it's going to happen. And a little bit about where next. So, the good news. You know, Maggie Gill, ex-chief scientist for Scottish Government's agriculture bit, had a wonderful expression. You know, since prehistory, humans have been dependent on animals. And we still are, and that's not going to change for quite some time. And the sorts of space that most of you work in are particularly favourably seen in that light, in the sense that, you know, your animals will make food from land that the only other real choice is trees, and your animals will eat things and digest them sort of efficiently, things that we don't want to eat or can't possibly eat. So there's a lot going for ruminants in terms of future food supply security, because we, as you've already heard, we don't have any more land. And this is just my visual on our outgoing chief scientist, Perfect Storm. We owe Professor Sir John Bennington an awful lot, I think, for getting food security up the agenda. It's still sometimes sniffed at if you wander around the member states. If you talk about sustainable intensification, they think you're swearing. they haven't caught on to the fact that we have these challenges facing us. Maybe we're not beyond peak oil. Maybe we've even got 300 years of natural gas left. But at some point, we have to make most of the materials that we want. We have to run the planet for a year on a year's sunshine. And now we're running the planet on historical sunshine, and that's just not sustainable. All the other things that fit in there. And you've probably heard that quote lots and lots of times before, but I think it's quite impactful. So over the next 50 years, the world's farmers and ranchers will be called upon to produce more food than has been produced in the past 10,000 years combined, and to do that in the context of all those challenges. So we've got to get more efficient. There's no doubt that we have to intensify sustainably. We have to get more food, more energy, more materials from every unit of input. So what's precision farming mean, or precision livestock farming? This is the Wikipedia definition. Use of advanced technologies to optimize the contribution of each animal. Yeah, it's okay. It only goes far enough. I don't think it goes far enough. Or to optimize the performance of the population by focusing on the contribution of each animal. Right, so trying to make a fairly subtle distinction, but sometimes the performance of the population is affected by the performance of individuals, right? So if you have a ewe that's an incredibly high shedder of fecal eggs, worm eggs, then she has a dramatic impact on the rest of the population. So just focusing on that one ewe is not sufficient. You have to look at the interactions between all the individuals. My favourite example is from layer hens, a classic experiment on group selection versus individual selection. Layer hens housed in groups of 6. The very best performing hen in terms of feed efficiency of converting feed into weight of egg by a mile was the hen that had killed the other 5 pen mates. Right. So you might not quite get the outcome you wanted if you selected from that one individual. You might be selecting for aggressive behaviour. So it's about optimising populations. And there's lots more technologies already available to us or coming to allow us to do that. I know it's saying rude words, but electronic identification is fantastic in terms of tying up data. Lots of sensors around that are getting cheaper and better. And actually, in some cases, genuinely affordable to use on a per animal basis. You've got the whole issue of location and timing. We're all used to it now with our mobiles. It will tell people where you are and where you've moved from and when you were there. Image analysis, we already heard this morning about video image analysis in the abattoir, but there's image analysis being used in livestock production already. There's a talk I saw not long ago about a broiler producer who uses video image analysis to monitor the movement of broilers. And if I understood the story correctly, I'm no expert on this, it doesn't track the movement of individuals at all. It just takes a series of still images of the floor and measures the floor area. And when the birds start to get poorly and start to feel ill, they stop moving around and they huddle, and the floor area goes up, and the computer sends him a text that says, "Oi, shed 7, the birds are poorly," before he's had a chance to notice. And that getting the early intervention of the antibiotics or whatever the appropriate treatment is in there makes a huge difference. Noticing really quickly. Diagnostics, there's a massive movement in human healthcare now to what's called patient-side diagnostics. It's becoming affordable to have a sort of a dipstick diagnostic at the patient's side in A&E or wherever it might be that will tell you what infection they have there and then. And the same will become available in livestock in due course. Sensors and networks of sensors. That I saw a talk from one of the AHDB-funded PhD students last week who's using collars on dairy cows that proximity measure, right? And it will track which other cows this cow is next to and for how long. And it has actually been used for working out the social network of the cows in the population. But think of the other applications of that in terms of, you know, detecting lameness or detecting ill health. Data in the cloud, I've got an example later on of people who have linked up existing databases that have always been there. But by joining them together have been able to do something that wasn't possible before. And we're getting much better, slowly, but we're getting better at predictive analysis of being able to foresee what happens next on the basis of previous patterns. And all of that lot gets applied to whatever it is you want to measure. One of the fastest growing innovations in feedlots in Canada and the States is feed intake recording. It's not affordable on everything, but most of the feedlot guys want an idea of what's happening from a feed conversion efficiency point of view from individuals and from intervention treatments. Growth and performance, if you can automatically weight record as animals pass through to be TB tested or whatever it might be, or actually just organise yourself so it's easier to routinely weight record. Health and welfare, product yield and quality, land management. There was a conference last week on use of satellite imagery. You know, how many people are precision grassland farming? You know, applying what you need when you need it. And emissions. And on an example of emissions, there's a number of research projects now looking at this sort of technology. It's a laser imaging system that was actually designed to detect leaks in gas pipelines, but is now being tested to say how good is it at measuring the methane output of a dairy cow in the parlour, a bunch of sheep in the field, actually not so good at a bunch of sheep in the field. And I'm going to come back to it in a moment, but DNA sequence analysis, this isn't available yet. This is a prototype, but if Oxford Nanopore deliver on what they are predicting they can deliver on, then that's a DNA sequencer attached to a laptop. Right? So it will be routine to DNA whole genomes of lots and lots of animals. There's a group that we run in collaboration with one of our sister knowledge transfer networks, which is the Electronics, Sensors and Photonics knowledge transfer network. And we run this group called eAgri. There's a competition in this space coming up from the Technology Strategy Board in, well, the competition briefings are in January. And it's about bringing sensor technology companies who have technologies in other industries into agriculture, and people who have things that they want to measure in agriculture to technology, sensor technology companies. So we have plant breeders in particular, or animal breeders who have things that they want to measure and they don't know how. And actually the technologies might well be out there, they just need a bit of tweaking, particularly to make them work in a farm environment. Examples of real life things going on at the moment, the smart sensor to improve cow health. That's a company called Well Cow out of Roslin. It's a pH bolus, goes down the neck and sits in the rumen, floating in the rumen with a weight to hold it the right way up, and it will tell you the pH of the rumen. You don't have to put it in every dairy cow, put it in some of them, and it will tell you when you've got an acidosis problem about to occur. And of course it reads as they go through the parlour. Bottom one, embedded technology solutions. It's the little accelerometer from the Wii console. Right? Games technology made it affordable to have thousands or tens of thousands of these little devices, and now you can put them on a cow collar and measure the movement, and you can detect estrus, you can detect lameness. There's probably other things that you can detect too.